Welcome back. It won't be long before we can expect freezing rain, sleet, snow, and fog. And those conditions make driving dangerous, especially for young, inexperienced drivers. So today, what to do to prepare for bad weather and the important conversation you should have with your teenage driver. And Ann Scallon is here with me today to talk more about that. Before we get to that, though, Ann is an expert on all things driving. And you were recently here and gave Tiffany and Molly some advice on what to do if you were to come in contact with a large animal. So a deer, something like that. Shortly thereafter, Tiffany actually had that experience where she hit a deer while driving, and she said that she had taken your tips and committed them to memory and actually used them, and she and her passenger were fine. The car, not so much, but she and her passenger were fine, and that's the most important thing, obviously. Very quickly, what do you do in a situation like that?
If you are approaching and a deer comes out in front of you, the most important thing to remember is not to swerve. So take your foot off the pedal, brake lightly if you need to, and go into the deer.
Okay.
That is the safest route to take.
So don't try to miss the deer. Don't try to miss the large animal.
Right.
Or a small animal in that case.
Exactly, because what will happen is the other dangers are much worse. The other traffic that you will hit or roll over in a ditch are much more dangerous than hitting the deer.
All right, let's transition to getting those teens ready for winter driving. This is actually really good information for any of us for winter driving, but what's the first thing to keep in mind when you are preparing your teenager to get out on the road at this time of year?
Well, I always say maintenance of the car is one of the most important things, because if you are prepared in advance and you have your car ready, you're going to solve a lot of issues.
Okay.
So give yourself a deadline. I would make calls today, especially if you have several family cars, and commit to getting it all done by December 1st, which is 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Okay.
But you want them to check for sure the tires, that the treads are strong enough. They might need to be replaced.
Maybe rotated.
Rotated, the hoses, the battery, the fluids, all of that type of things you can get done way in advance.
Now, it's obviously, in this day and age, much safer for a teenager to be out on the road because of, and also conversely, maybe not, because of cell phones, because they have access to a parent or to law enforcement in the event that something happens much quicker than we did back in the day when we had to go and find a phone. But there are other things that they need to be prepared in the car with in the situation that they get stranded. What are some of those things?
Well, again, regarding the cell phone, that's if the cell phone's on the side.
Exactly.
And only going to be used if they're going to pull over at a complete stop in a safe location like a parking lot.
Right.
Not on the side of the road.
Yes. Keep that hands off until you need it and you're parked. Yeah.
Right. So what I recommend is to really have a full kit in your car. You want a first aid kit. You want to make sure you always have your insurance card. Many people don't realize that most insurance companies provide roadside assistance. So you can call that number and get roadside assistance. Jumper cables, blankets, windshield fluid, just all types of different things, extra, you know, scarves, maybe some snacks, some water, that type of thing.
Right, and those are things that you don't necessarily think about needing in your car, having extra water, things like that. When you're a parent, you think about those things because you're thinking about providing for your child. When you're a teenager, you're not necessarily preparing for a disaster.
Right, and it's important to practice with the teens. You know, the first rotten day that we get, try to go out that evening to an empty parking lot, have them practice the maneuvers, the braking, because it's going to be much different on the ice than it is what they're used to, and all sorts of different maneuvers. And one of the main things to tell them and all of us is to slow down.
Yes, slow
down. That is the big thing. Accelerate slowly, decelerate slowly, which is something people forget because hitting your brakes quickly can also cause swerving.
And increase lead time between cars.
Yes,
right?
definitely.
Make sure that you're giving at least a couple of car lengths, right? Between yourself and the vehicle in front of you.
And if you're on the highway, possibly even more.
Okay, well, you want to go to beforethewheel.com to learn more about Ann's tips. And these are important for all of us, again, not just for your teenagers, but make sure that you get them prepped in the car as well. And again, get those things done before December 1st.